then get into a cycle or a community and put pressure on the service provider to know that here is a big area with a large potential base that you can actually require and that they can sell services to. Typically what happens is that if you're as a single individual go to a service provider and they're going to say, well, there's one guy there, you might get 200 Rand out of him.
Yeah.
But if you live in a community of 700 people and you go to them and say, we're 700 people and we're each going to give 200 Rand per month to get broadband, the equation suddenly becomes different. And you go, okay, now we can actually do something about this. We can put a new fiber cable into that area and provide that type of connectivity.
So it's really about the demand.
It is about the demand.
And has the smartphone taken some of that demand away because people are now using internet services via the smartphone and not necessarily along other means?
No, the smartphone has actually increased the demand because the data that mobile operators charge for broadband services is extremely high. So people don't want to actually utilize the data portion of the mobile operators' services. They would rather want to go to something that's cheaper. So what they do is they get a broadband connection at home and they install a Wi-Fi router.
Right.
And as soon as a person gets home, you swap from your mobile service provider data provision, which is 3G, which is expensive, and you connect to Wi-Fi. Right now, the statistic, which isn't very highly mentioned, is that 75% of data usage on smartphones originates on Wi-Fi.
Oh.
So yes, by far the majority of data utilization is people who go home and then they switch their phones and they use their smartphones as their broadband connection.
That is interesting, since you can't really only make the money off the hardware that is the phone. You really do need people to be using that service in order to make the money if you're a service provider.
Yes, look, the service providers as well have got a problem in that if everybody had a smartphone right now at this moment in time and everybody used the data connections, the network would melt.
Yeah.
So you know, there has to be an ecosystem where you utilize 3G and broadband together as a consumer. And yes, broadband via a service provider that's providing it over ADSL, fixed wireless, will always be cheaper, and you'll then be able to go into your homes and utilize that cheaper, but still using the form factor that you've come to enjoy. Smartphones have become prevalent just because of the form factor. It's like a tablet. You wake up in the morning. Previously, what you would have to do is you'd have to get up and go to your desk and switch your computer on. Sometimes if you had real old screen, it would have to warm up first. That type of thing, and then you log on, and then nowadays with a tablet you switch it on, it's instantaneously available, and you connect to where you are with Wi-Fi, and you do it from your bed.
When we arrived, I was about to offer you a newspaper, and you said, no, you've already been on your tablet this morning, and that's changed the world tremendously also. The fact that you have all the information you need at your fingertips at any given time.
Yes.
No more driving to the corner cafe to get the newspaper.
Well, one of the things that I remember as a child growing up is I grew up in the Natal Midlands, far from on a farm that didn't have any major technology available for it to communicate, and my dad would drive 30 kilometers to the nearest town to get a newspaper, and then the newspaper would go home and then move through the family from person to person in the hierarchy of the most important to the least important person, and that's how we'd read the news. And we typically would read the paper from end to end because that's all we had. But nowadays when we utilize tablets, we actually we're more discerning. We have our interests, so I won't read everything anymore. I just read of what's interesting me on the tablet.
That's right, because you don't have to have every page, and everyone in the household has some means of receiving the information that they need. So life has certainly changed for us in terms of technology and in terms of who we are as South Africans. Ronald, it's been wonderful having you in the studio. Ronald Bartlett, who is with us here from iBurst, talking to us about where technology is, where it needs to be going, and the highest level of consumer services that we're able to give. However, there are more stakeholders involved than just that. Just this week, we heard about the broad sweep across BlackBerry. Very, very surprising, I believe, to all of us. In fact, that information comes to